Picture this. It's a Friday night. You're scrolling through Instagram, and within about 30 seconds, you've seen someone's new car, someone else's hotel balcony in Dubai, a fresh pair of limited edition sneakers still in the box, and a dinner bill that costs more than your weekly grocery shop. And for just a moment, even if you don't want to admit it, something happens inside you. A little voice, a small itch, a quiet feeling that says, I should have that too. Maybe you brush it off, but maybe, just maybe, it lingers. And here's what's interesting. That feeling, it's not weakness. It's not immaturity. It's not something wrong with you. It's one of the oldest, most deeply wired psychological responses in the human brain. And right now, there's an entire economy built on triggering it, over and over again, every single day. Because the people posting those photos, many of them are broke. And the people watching, many of them are slowly going broke, trying to keep up. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most expensive psychological traps of the social media generation. And by the end, you'll never scroll through your feed the same way again. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when you scroll through social media. There's a concept in psychology called social comparison theory. It was identified by a psychologist named Leon Festinger back in the 1950s. His insight was simple but powerful. Humans constantly evaluate themselves by comparing themselves to others. We don't just want to know if we're doing well in absolute terms, we want to know if we're doing well compared to the people around us. This made a lot of sense for most of human history. When your comparison group was your village, your neighborhood, your workplace, the people you actually lived alongside, social comparison was manageable. You were comparing yourself to maybe a few hundred people at most. But social media changed everything. Now, your comparison group is effectively everyone, millions of people, billions of posts. And it's not a random sample, it's a curated highlight reel of the most impressive moments from the most aspirational lives pushed to you by an algorithm specifically designed to maximize your time on screen. So your brain is now running an ancient psychological program, social comparison, in a completely modern, completely distorted environment. And it's costing people real money. Here's how it plays out in practice. Let's say you have a friend. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus earns a decent salary, lives in a nice apartment, drives a fairly new car. By any reasonable measure, Marcus is doing okay financially. But Marcus is also on Instagram 4 hours a day. And every day, his feed is full of people who seem to be doing so much more. Better cars, better holidays, better everything. So, Marcus buys things he doesn't really need to feel like he's keeping up. A new watch, upgraded headphones, a weekend trip he couldn't really afford, dinners he photographs more than he eats. Marcus isn't buying things because they make his life better. He's buying things to communicate a version of himself to an audience that largely doesn't care and mostly won't remember. And this is the core mechanic of the social media flex trap. Spending money to perform wealth rather than to build it. There's even a phrase economists use for this: conspicuous consumption. It means buying things not for their practical use, but for the signal they send, the visible public performance of success. And conspicuous consumption has always existed, but social media has turned the volume up to a level we've never seen before. Because now the performance has a direct audience: likes, comments, views, shares, real-time feedback on how impressive your spending looks. Your brain, which is wired to care deeply about social approval, responds to that feedback like a reward, a little hit of dopamine every time the numbers go up. And so a loop gets created. Spend money, post about it, get approval, feel good. Spend more money. Except the bank account is running in the opposite direction. Here's the deeper truth that changes everything. The people who are actually building real wealth, they're almost never the ones performing it online. This is one of the most well-documented findings in personal finance research. The typical millionaire in most developed countries doesn't drive a Ferrari. They drive a modest, reliable car. They live in a house that looks ordinary from the outside. They shop carefully. They don't broadcast their net worth. Why? Because they understand something that took them years to learn, or that they were lucky enough to be taught early. Wealth is not what you show. Wealth is what you keep. Think about it this way. Imagine two people both earning the same income. Person A spends aggressively to look successful. New clothes, new gadgets, nice restaurants, the latest phone every year. Their Instagram looks incredible. But at the end of each month, they have almost nothing left over. No savings, no investments, just the appearance of doing well. Person B lives simply. Their lifestyle looks unremarkable. They drive the same car for 8 years. They cook at home most nights. They don't post much. But every single month, they're quietly putting money aside into index funds, into a retirement account, into assets that grow while they sleep. 20 years later, person A still looks good on social media. Person B is financially free. The irony is brutal. The people chasing the appearance of wealth are often the ones drifting furthest from the reality of it. And there's a psychological reason this is so hard to fight. It's called the spotlight effect. We consistently overestimate how much other people are paying attention to us. We think people notice our old phone, our last season jacket, our modest car. We assume we're being judged constantly. But here's the truth. Most people are too busy worrying about how they look to other people to spend much time judging you. We're all performing for an audience that's mostly performing right back at us. So what do you actually do with all of this? The first thing is to audit your spending for approval-seeking purchases. Not all spending is equal. Some spending genuinely improves your life. A comfortable mattress, good food, experiences that create real memories with people you love. That's money well spent. But some spending is really just buying an audience. Go through your last 3 months of expenses and ask yourself honestly, did I buy this because it made my life better or because of how it would look? That question alone can be genuinely revealing. Second, change your comparison group intentionally. If your social media feed is full of people performing luxury lifestyles, your brain will start to normalize that as the standard. So deliberately follow people who talk about financial independence, smart saving, early retirement, building wealth quietly. Shift your mental baseline toward what's actually aspirational: freedom, security, options. Third, understand the real cost of keeping up. Let's say you spend an extra $300 a month on things you bought primarily for appearances. That's $3,600 a year. Over 10 years, invested at a 7% annual return, that's roughly $50,000. $50,000 in exchange for looking impressive on a screen to people who, statistically, spend about 2 seconds looking at each post before scrolling on. When you frame it that way, the trade starts to look very different. Fourth, start measuring your wealth differently. Most people measure their financial progress by what they have that others can see: their car, their clothes, their lifestyle. Flip that. Start measuring your progress by your net worth, what you own minus what you owe, by your savings rate, by how many months you could survive if your income stopped tomorrow. Those numbers don't make great Instagram content, but they are the actual measure of financial health. And the more you focus on them, the less power the flex trap has over you. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. Social media is one of the most powerful financial forces of our generation, not because of the investment advice on it, not because of the business opportunities it creates, but because of what it does to how we feel about our own lives when we compare them to a carefully constructed illusion. The social media flex trap is designed algorithmically, psychologically, commercially, to make you feel like you're behind, to make you feel like your real life is somehow less than the highlight reel you're watching. And the response it's counting on is simple: spend money to close that gap. But here's what the most financially successful people quietly understand: the gap was never real. The race was never real. The audience was never as attentive as you imagined. And the finish line, the moment when showing off actually makes you feel whole, doesn't exist. What does exist is the compound interest on 1,000 small, unglamorous financial decisions made over years. The freedom that comes from owing nobody anything. The security of knowing that whatever happens next week, next month, next year, you're going to be okay. That's not something you can post about, but it's something you can feel. If this video made you think differently about the way you spend or the way you scroll, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because we've got a lot more videos coming that are going to challenge the way you think about money, wealth, and the quiet traps that most people never see. See you in the next one.